believe that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Elizabeth, did you think that the secretary coordinated with the government before his announcement or not? And do you think that there is a coordination between the Saudis and the government, the Yemeni government, in this regard too?
Okay, so in terms of the coordination between the Saudis and that government, I'd refer you to those parties. Where we are working is with the UN Special Envoy in his role to facilitate the communication between the parties.
But how can he announce such an agreement or
What he
ceasefire?
announced was that we had made significant progress towards that roadmap, towards the UN roadmap, looking at November 17th date, that he had had constructive engagements with the Houthis about this, and that we believe there's a path forward.
But it's not, this issue is not related to the Houthis only.
Well, no, of course, and that's what we've said, and we continue to work with the UN Special Envoy as he continues to talk with all parties to move towards that November 17th
And why don't you talk to the Yemeni government directly as the secretary talked to the Houthis directly?
So the conversation that the secretary had with the Houthis was to talk about that UN roadmap. In terms of conversation directly with the Yemeni government, we believe that's the role of the UN Special Envoy, and we direct you there.
And it's not the role of the UN Special Envoy to talk to the Houthis too?
Well, we believe that it was important to talk to the Houthis as we move forward and try and move to that 17th to get that cessation of hostilities, to create a roadmap going forward under the UN auspices.
As you know, the Houthis get significant support from Iran. Has the Secretary been in touch with Foreign Minister Zarif?
I have no calls to read out on that.
So you don't know then if the Houthis' main sponsor is also on board. It's not just the Yemeni government that is not yet on board, but you don't know whether
the Secretary had direct engagement with the Houthis regarding the path forward on this. They've accepted the UN roadmap as the path forward, so we take their word for it.
Do you happen to know how many times the Secretary's had direct contact with the Houthis?
Actually, I don't. I do note it's unusual. I can check that.
It's, yeah, I don't know that he's ever had himself. I know that there have been contacts, but is this the first?
Don't believe that, but we'll check, and if he has before, then I'll get back to you.
Where did he meet with them? In Oman or UAE?
He met with them last night, so that was in Oman.
Wow. And do you have the names
Hold on one second.
of the
I do not.
Houthi representatives?
I do not. Why don't we go to Syria?
A quick
Of course, on Yemen.
Right, I'm just confused, trying to clarify. The 17th, the date of the November 17th, who proposed it?
You know, I believe this came out actually of the discussions that the Secretary had, noting, as Matt has pointed out, that there's still some granularity, that there's work to do moving towards that cessation. But we believe we have a path forward on this.
And was it premature, do you think? Sorry.
No, I don't believe it was premature. I think with the Houthis' agreement on this, this was a significant step. Are we moving to Syria? Go ahead.
Syria? Yeah. Could you update us? Apparently the Russians resumed bombardment of Idlib and these areas, although not in the Aleppo area. Could you first update us on what the situation is and if there has been any kind of contact with the Russians on this issue?
Okay. So we have seen that. We strongly condemn the resumption of airstrikes in Syria by the Russians as well as the Syrian regime. The most recent reported attacks are on 5 hospitals and 1 mobile clinic in Syria. We believe it's a violation of international law. It's also worth noting, and I would say this as an aside, but noting our focus has been on the delivery of aid, is that despite Russian claims that it halted airstrikes in the past month, Russia allowed no aid or food into East Aleppo. It let eastern Aleppo residents starve while seeking praise from the international community for halting indiscriminate strikes for 3 weeks. You know, we have consistently tried to work to de-escalate the violence in Syria. We're at the table again in Geneva on that today. And we've consistently pushed for the provision of humanitarian aid to these civilians suffering under siege. Instead of joining us constructively to reach that goal, Russia again has backed the Assad regime in their ruthless war against the Syrian people.
You're saying that they have halted aid during the
They did
time.
not permit the facilitation.
How did they do that physically? I mean, did they? have barricades? Did they stop?
You know, in terms
the-
of,
the-
and they
you know,
did not
obstructed the roads and-
facilitate the access. They worked with their partners in the regime to block the aid.
There are also reports that.
Hold on
just
one
I'm sorry.
second.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, and I'll follow up on you.
On this one, I mean, what specifically did Russia do in this latest bombing campaign that you're saying is a violation of international law?
Well, we're taking a look at what Russia is hitting. It's hitting mobile clinics. It's hitting hospitals. You know, again, it's denying aid. We've said this repeatedly. You know, Russia had an opportunity here to facilitate aid and food and medicine to these people under siege. It failed to do so.
But when you're saying it's a violation of international law, are you talking about something they have specifically done as part of this resumption of airstrikes, whether it's the hitting of hospitals, or are you saying this is just what they've been up to
The set of actions that they have taken with it
over
within
the last
weeks.
many weeks?
Yes. Sorry.
Surprised?
You know, we've talked a lot about Russia's actions and their words. You know, Russia, for 3 weeks, made a significant point of saying that it had halted bombardment of Aleppo and had, you know, broadcast that through its various platforms and various outlets. You know, the resumption of airstrikes today, I won't say is a surprise. It's certainly a disappointment.
But they did say that these pauses were temporary in nature, and they kept being extended.
With
and
the
then,
idea that it would be for aid access,
Right, and then
which did not happen.
right, and then they did make the announcement that everyone should leave
Yeah.
that part of the city. That doesn't make it any. That doesn't
You
mitigate
know,
it.
warning civilians that you're going to bomb them doesn't make bombing civilians.
I'm not suggesting that it does. I'm just asking you that
Correct.
that you don't think that that's a mitigating factor.
Hold on one second, Leslie. I want to go to Saeed because we
Very quickly. Now, they're making separation between bombing Aleppo and bombing Idlib. You don't make that separation. You think that's part of
We think
the
bombing
same
civilians,
campaign.
yes.
Yeah, but it's part of the same campaign,
Yes.
the same Russian aerial bombardment campaign. And my last question is, it seems that areas under government control is also suffering from lack of aid and so on, according to the United Nations. Do you have any information on that?
I
there is
don't.
that-
You know, on that would be best a question for the UN. You know, civilians need aid, period. Leslie, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Rule. Have you raised your thoughts with the Russians? If you are talking in,
You know, so we continue to have these discussions in Geneva.
what was it raised with them then?
Yes,
It was.
yes.
So wait,
Mhm.
today?
We met in Geneva.
Today.
The issue of the possibility of strikes. You know, I'm not sure on the timing because I believe the strikes happened while they were still meeting in Geneva. We've raised the issue of bombardment. Let me check the exact timing and see if it came up today.
Well,
Okay?
but wait, but I mean, you can't.
Yeah, so
say
we
that
were meeting in Geneva. We talked about
there was
the
a
issue.
meeting underway when the resumption of
I
the
want to
attacks
check the
happened.
exact timing on that. Okay.
Okay.
Are we done on Syria?
Well, I just want to go back to not the point that I made yesterday, but my question from yesterday. If they were in fact in the middle of a meeting, how can you say that these meetings are accomplishing anything when in the middle of it, the bombardment resumes?
Yeah, we believe that Russia and the Syrian regime's actions are inexcusable. However, we still believe that the only way forward is a political resolution, and that resolution will happen through multilateral talks.
Right, but these multilateral talks are not aimed at a political resolution. I thought they were aimed at trying to get the ceasefire back.
It is a ceasefire,
I
aid
know.
delivery, creating the space to have that political
But the
resolution.
meetings in Geneva are not aimed at, I mean, they are ultimately aimed at
They are.
restarting the political talks, but in the immediate term, they're supposed to be for the ceasefire.
That's correct,
Right.
but we do view this as a sequence of steps.
I get that, but you're still saying that these meetings are worthwhile, and
We
I don't
do.
understand how you can say that if in the very middle of the meeting, the attacks begin again.
We continue to believe it's important to talk.
Okay.
And when will you be ready to withdraw from the deal?
I'm not going to get ahead of that, Michelle. One more.
Well, I was trying to figure out, can we just clarify at what level are these discussions?
They're
again?
working
So if
level.
you say, I mean, is Ratney there? Is the special envoy
At
there?
this stage, it's working level discussions. It's my understanding that the special envoy is not in Geneva right now.
What are the achievements of these meetings or of these groups?
You know, we talked about this at length yesterday.
But we didn't
Michelle.
get it yet. If there is no results yet and they are still meeting, what's the purpose of meeting without achieving anything?
You know, we actually spent about 20 minutes unpacking this yesterday. You know, we are not saying that these discussions in Geneva are coming to an immediate conclusion or an immediate win, but we continue to believe that this is the best path forward, is a discussion in a multilateral setting, and we'll stay at the table until we believe it's not the case.
The U.S. ambassador in Iraq visited Erbil over the weekend.
He did.
Could you give us a readout on his meetings, please?
I did. I believe you might have seen the embassy in Baghdad actually issued a statement on this today, but I'm happy to recap it. Ambassador Suleiman did visit the Iraq Kurdistan region yesterday. The ambassador was accompanied by the Deputy Special Presidential Envoy for the Global Coalition to Counter ISIL, Terry Wolf. The ambassador met separately with President Barzani and other IKR officials to discuss progress in the battle against Daesh, U.S. support for the Peshmerga, and the IDP situation in the area. The ambassador praised the sacrifices and the bravery of the Peshmerga and thanked the leaders for their support of the more than 1 million IDPs and refugees who have come to the IKR. Ambassador Suleiman also encouraged the